Lebanon is in the grip of unprecedented protests. 1.5 million people, that is a quarter of the population, have taken to the streets over the last 5 days to call for political and economic reform. You can see the sheer size of the protest here in Beirut's Martyr Square yesterday on Sunday. The protests were triggered in part by a plan to tax calls on WhatsApp and other messaging services, but have turned into a revolt against a weak government, ailing services and a looming economic collapse. A nationwide strike is being observed today. You can see how empty the streets are here. Roads are blocked too, and the cabinet is meeting reportedly to approve a new set of measures they hope will satisfy the protesters. Let's take you live now to Beirut just to show you the pictures there right now. You can see people blocking the roads. There have been protesters out on the street as well in force today. And in amongst it all is our correspondent Rami Ruhayan, who gave us the latest from there.
First thing they wanted was to block any attempt by the government, any further attempt by the government to raise taxes of the kind that disproportionately affect poor people. It wasn't just the WhatsApp tax, but it was a series of proposals by the cabinet that sparked the protests to begin with, and people came out very angrily against any kind of tax that would disproportionately affect poor people, and any attempt by the government to solve the very deep structural problems in the Lebanese economy simply by extracting more money from the people. And that was the beginning of it. But after that, it developed into something much bigger. It developed into a concentrated attack on the very nature of the political system in Lebanon, and also calls for the resignation of the government, of the president, of the entire parliament, as well as new elections. So lots of demands coming out from the street, not just in Beirut, but across the country, and the government right now under intense pressure.
What can the government do to bring an end to these protests, Rami? Because the president has said, I feel the protesters' pain, but are there any policies they can put in place that would satisfy the protesters?
There have been leaks about certain ideas circulating in the government, but it's far from clear whether any of these ideas would be enough to pacify the protesters. There's an issue of trust to begin with. The people here are under no illusion that the government stepping back from these taxes is something that would be sustained if they were to leave the streets. They know that it is intense pressure that has forced the government to back down from these measures, and they also know that if they were to come off the street, it's quite likely that the government might feel that the pressure is less now, and that it can maybe either resort to the measures that it was thinking about earlier or not implement reforms seriously. But there is also a question about what kind of reforms are needed. For example, the protesters may not necessarily agree with the kind of reforms proposed by the government. A higher tax on the profits of the banks is something definitely that's very popular, but other measures like privatization, for example, would probably divide people more than unite them, or the people on the streets might not trust the government itself to carry out any such reforms, given the level of waste and corruption that everybody knows exists in the Lebanese system. So it's very difficult to think what the government might do today to get people off the streets.